Okay, welcome in. I didn't have a chance to do my previews yesterday on Christmas for the two games, so I do have them circled on my paper, and I'll take a picture of of all the games that I predicted this week. Therefore, it looks like I actually did my picks before my video, which I did. I just didn't have time to upload it. The first one took place in Pittsburgh as the Steelers played host to the Kansas City Chiefs. Both of these teams are for sure playoff bound. One is guaranteed a division title, while the other one is still fighting for one, respectively. So 29-10 would be the final score for KC. I honestly would have picked them to win even before the game even started. They're the better team on paper. They only have one loss. When you have Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, and all their friends on that team, Coach Andy Reid, who's guaranteed to be a first ballot Hall of Famer once he retires, if he retires, that is. They're just a dominant team. They're back-to-back Super Bowl champions for a reason. So I can't give enough praise to the Chiefs. It kills me inside to say that being a Broncos fan. But besides that, again, they are a very good team offensively and defensively as well. So yeah, huge victory for the Chiefs. With this win, they have now secured home field advantage throughout the entire playoffs. Nobody can catch them, not even the Bills. So I have a funny feeling when it comes to their Week 18 game, there's a chance they could be resting players as they literally have nothing to play for. As for the Pittsburgh Steelers, a tough loss. With that loss, it now drops them into a wild card position. I'm sure they would much rather have had the win than they could have possibly secured an AFC North title, but unfortunately, it did not pan out like that. The next game took place in Houston as the Baltimore Ravens played against the Texans. I would have predicted that Baltimore would have won this game. I definitely wouldn't have said it'd be a 31-2 game. That definitely was not a score that would have crossed my mind at all. For the Ravens, after the win and the Steelers lost, they have now bounced back into the division lead for the NFC North. And I got a funny feeling that obviously next week is a huge game. It's going to be a huge week for both the Ravens and Steelers, respectively, as a win for either team can secure a home playoff game, at least in the wild card round. So the two games from Christmas were already said and done. I will do a recap once Monday's games are over. So I guarantee I'll probably be talking about these two games again. But I just wanted to let everybody know at the start who I would have predicted for yesterday's games. Now for today's game, which is the last Thursday night football game of the season. This is so sad. I can't believe how fast time flies and how fast the NFL season really goes. So tonight we have the Chicago Bears. They're 4-11, taking on the 8-7 Seattle Seahawks. This is a critical game for the Seahawks more than it is for the Bears. Obviously, the Bears are eliminated. They're definitely looking forward to this upcoming draft, or next year's draft, whatever you want to call it. As for the Seahawks, they are in a dogfight. They're in a fight for their lives if they want to compete for a playoff position. I got to tell you right now, if they do make the playoffs, I don't think they're going to make it as a wild card team, only because the Commanders have 10 wins already. So basically, if Washington wins one more game, Seattle has no chance of catching them in a playoff position. But they're still technically alive in the NFC West, as the Rams are 9-6, I do believe. So a win for the Seahawks tonight and a loss for the Rams on Sunday could definitely make things interesting for that NFC West crown. I do apologize, in week number 18. Now, obviously, if the Seahawks lose this game to the Bears and the Rams win, then obviously LA would secure that NFC West title. So a huge, huge game. If you're a Seahawks fan, you need this win over the Bears. Saturday, we have three games on tap, and I'm for sure going to be locked into one of them. The first game takes place in New England as the Patriots are playing host to the Los Angeles Chargers. For the Patriots, there isn't really much to say about this team. They're obviously clearly still in a rebuild. Maybe they're going to play spoiler the last 2 weeks of the season, depending on who they play. Who knows? For the Chargers, they got a big win against the Broncos last week. So they had an extra day or two off for rest. So I'm sure they'll be plenty healthy and ready to go once Saturday morning rolls around. I want to give the edge to the Chargers in this one. There's just something about Jim Harbaugh. He just seems to have success everywhere he goes. And obviously one more win for the Chargers, and they'll guaranteed to have an X beside their name, which would put them back in the postseason. So the Chargers for me all day. The next game has the Cincinnati Bengals 7-8, still barely alive in that playoff position, taking on the Denver Broncos, who are currently holding the last playoff spot in the AFC. Oh, man. I want to pick the Broncos so badly. I want to pick the Broncos. They obviously just need one more win, and they're guaranteed to make the playoffs for the first time in 8 or 9 seasons. For the Bengals, if they happen to pull off a victory over the Broncos, then they're still technically alive, and then Week 18 will mean that much more for the Bengals. And obviously, if Cincinnati beats Denver, and they both have identical records by the week number 18 is over, then obviously Cincinnati would bump Denver out of a playoff position. So this is a crucial game for both these teams. Obviously, Denver, they don't want to have to rely on week 18 to win and other teams lose. They need this win. They needed it. Honestly, they needed it last week against the Chargers, but I knew it was going to be tough against LA. It's going to be even tougher against Cincy because Cincinnati is desperately trying to be one of those teams in a wild card spot. So I'm going to go with Cincinnati on this one. It kills me to say that because I would love for the Broncos to win. But when you're in a dogfight for a playoff spot, every team's desperate to try to win. And something tells me Cincinnati's going to be just a little bit more desperate in this matchup. So I will give the edge to the Bengals. The last game takes place in Los Angeles, at least Saturday-wise, as the Rams, 9-6, host to the Arizona Cardinals. The Cardinals have already been eliminated from the postseason, so there's no hope in hell. Even if they finish with a 9-8 record, they're still not making the playoffs. For the Los Angeles Rams, they have a lot to play for. Tonight's game, which I previously talked about with the Seahawks, is very critical. I'm sure if you're a Rams fan or even Rams players or management and coaches, you'll for sure keep your eye on the Bears and Seahawks game tonight. Obviously, if the Seahawks lose and the Rams win on Saturday, they would for sure clinch the NFC West title. However, if the Seahawks win and the Rams lose, or if both teams happen to win, then obviously Week 18 will be that much more critical for both the Rams and the Seahawks, respectively. But my heart is telling me LA should win and get their 10th victory of the season. All right, so we have a number of games taking place on Sunday, and I scrolled up way too far. Let me scroll right back down. There we go. So the first one has the New York Football Giants, 2-13, taking on the 7-8 Indianapolis Colts. And I do apologize for the blurriness of the screen. I've tried moving this tablet around so many times, it's just impossible to get a perfect shot. So if you can't read the numbers, that's what I'm here for, is to talk about it. So the Giants, as I said, are playing host to the Indianapolis Colts. The Giants obviously eliminated from the postseason. They would love to play spoiler in this matchup. For the Colts, they're in the same position as the Bengals and, oh gosh, there's another team too. The Bengals, the Colts, and the Dolphins, I apologize. So all three teams are still in the dogfight for that last playoff position. I'm going to go with Indy in this particular matchup. For me, it's hard for me to find a lot of positives when it comes to the New York Giants. They've been an absolute train wreck this season, and I'm sure I've said my rant about the Giants in the past. It's unfortunate. They have a lot of questions moving forward. Who's going to be their quarterback? I mean, are they going to make any coaching changes? Who knows? It's just a lot of things that need to happen for this Giants team to pull their head out of their you-know-what and get their ish back on track. So, yeah, I got the Colts all day in this one. They should get back to 500. And again, depending on the outcome of the Broncos and the Chargers game respectively, if they win, then Week 18 could be that much more meaningful for Indy. All right, just to the right of that, we have the Buffalo Bills, 12-3, taking on the 4-11 New York Football Giants. So, no, New York Jets. I apologize. The Bills should win this game. Obviously, if they were to win this one, they'd for sure lock in that number 2 seed in the AFC, as the Chiefs already won, so therefore Buffalo can't catch Kansas City for that number 1 overall record in the AFC, which means they unfortunately will have to play another wild card game. I got the Bills all day. It's hard for me to believe that the Jets are going to come into Buffalo and pull off an upset. I mean, they could, but with how poorly they've played this year, it's hard for me to find a lot of good things to say about Aaron Rodgers and company. So yeah, I got the Bills all day in this matchup. All right, now we're off to the AFC South as we have two 3-12 teams duking it out, hopefully trying to get a win over another. The Jaguars and the Tennessee Titans. There's really not much to say about this matchup. I'm not going to put too much time into this one. I'll just give the edge to the Jags. There, plain and simple. All right, now we have the New Orleans Saints. They're 5-10, taking on the 3-12 Las Vegas Raiders. Now, depending on who the starting quarterback for New Orleans is, I don't think Derek Carr is going to be matched in the starting QB. I'm pretty sure he's out. But if he's not, I'm sure he would love to play and win against his former team. So either way, whoever the quarterback is for the Saints, even though they got shut out badly against the Packers last week, I got a funny feeling they're going to want to bounce back, especially in front of their home fans. They definitely want to put up more than 0 points in this particular matchup. So, yeah, I'll give the edge to the Saints just by a hair in this game. All right, so the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, 8-7, taking on the 4-11 Carolina Panthers. The Bucs lost a heartbreaker last week against the Cowboys. The Carolina Panthers won their game, so obviously one team wants to continue their winning streak, while the other one wants to get a win and hopefully pursue a 4th straight NFC South title. For the Buccaneers, this game and possible Week 18 could be that much more meaningful depending on the outcome of the Falcons game as well. So a win and say the Falcons lose this week, Tampa Bay would be guaranteed a playoff or a NFC South crown. And obviously, if the Buccaneers happen to lose and the Falcons win, or they both happen to lose, then again, Week 18's matchup will be that much more meaningful for the Buccaneers, respectively. But yeah, I got the Bucs all day against the Panthers. I guarantee they're going to want to bounce back, especially after losing last week. All right, to the right of that, we have the Philadelphia Eagles, 12-3. They are in a playoff position, and all they want is one more victory, and then they'll be guaranteed an NFC East crown for the second time in 3 years, if I'm not mistaken. For obviously the Eagles, they lost a critical game last week against Washington. Had they won, they would have secured not only the NFC East, but more than likely the number 2 spot in the NFC overall. Against the Cowboys, it'll be tough, but I got the Eagles pulling this one out. And whether it doesn't matter how Washington, the result of the Commanders game, truthfully, as long as the Eagles win, I guarantee they should get the NFC East crown, because they're 2 games up on Washington, if I'm not mistaken, and obviously one more win will put them over the top. Okay, so next one, we're off to Cleveland, as the 3-12 Browns are playing host to the 7-8 Miami Dolphins. For the Dolphins, this is a huge game. If, again, depending on the outcome of the Chargers and Broncos game respectively, if both those teams happen to win, obviously this game will mean absolutely nothing. But if there's a slim chance that the Broncos or the Chargers happen to lose and Miami Dolphins happen to win, then obviously Week 18's matchup will be that much more crucial for the Dolphins. So their playoff hopes, they're slim. They're not out of it just yet. But obviously, if both those teams who I just previously talked about happen to win Saturday, then Sunday and Week 18 will mean absolutely nothing. It won't even matter if they finish with a 9-8 record. If you're out of the playoffs, you're out of the playoffs. So either way, I'm going to take Miami in this one. Cleveland hasn't shown me much for consistency. They had a couple of wins against the Steelers and Ravens earlier in the year, but 3-12. I don't know who their starting quarterback is, if I'm going to be completely honest with you. They had Watson, then they benched Winston, and I think they're on their 3rd quarterback, if I'm not mistaken. So just too many changes, in my opinion, for the Browns for them to be consistent and great. So again, for me, it makes no difference what the outcome of the Los Angeles and Denver game is. I think Miami should still take this victory over the Browns. Now, the next one to the right, this is a huge game. This could be the game of the week, even though both these teams possibly could be both wildcard teams, as the 13-2 Minnesota Vikings are taking on the 11-4 Green Bay Packers. This is huge. This is crazy. And who would have guessed that both these teams would have these records and they're not in first place? It just shows how powerful and how strong that NFC North really, truly is. I got the Vikings in this one, but I think this will be a dogfight. I think this could come down to like a last-second field goal attempt or something like that, or might even push for an overtime. I don't see one team dominating or one team destroying the other team or running away with this game. But I think this could be easily the game of the week, as both these teams are not only playoff bound, but if Minnesota happens to win and say Detroit loses, then that could make things very interesting as to who's going to finish first in the North. All right, the Sunday night matchup takes place in Washington as we have the 10-5 Commanders taking on the 8-7 Atlanta Falcons. These two teams could possibly be in the playoffs. Unlikely to meet unless Washington happens to bump up to. Well, Washington can't really do much because Minnesota's 13 wins and Packers have 11. So, I mean, at best, Washington could bump up to sixth spot in the NFC East, or the NFC, I should say. Again, depending on how the Packers, what their record is after this game. As for the Falcons, they're fighting for their playoff lives. I think they're looking beyond a chance of making it into a wild card spot. If the Commanders beat the Falcons, obviously the Falcons would be completely eliminated from the wild card standard, but they still could be alive in that NFC South, as the Buccaneers have the same record as Atlanta does. So a loss here, again, there's so many different factors here. I mean, both the Buccaneers and the Falcons could lose, both of them could win, and then it would still be that much more meaningful for Week 18. And even if Atlanta loses and say Tampa Bay wins, they're only a game ahead of Atlanta with one more game remaining on the schedule. So neither team, the Falcons or the Buccaneers, can be eliminated after this week. It's going to come down to a Week 18 showdown, and that's going to be one hell of an ending to see who gets that NFC South crown. The last game takes place on Monday night as we have the 6-9 San Francisco 49ers, who were just recently eliminated from the postseason, and they're playing host to the Detroit Lions. You could almost say this is like a rematch of last year's NFC Championship game. Unfortunately, there's a lot different stakes at this helm. For San Fran, like I said, they've been eliminated, so they have literally nothing to play for other than playing for spoiler at this point in the season. If San Fran happens to win and say Philadelphia wins, maybe Philadelphia pushes Detroit out of that top seed in the NFC. And obviously, if Detroit wins, then they could almost lock a first round bye when the wild card round comes around. So I got Detroit all day in this matchup. If I did make my prediction before, I will give the edge to the Washington Commanders as well. So, that's going to take care, I believe, of this preview / kind of review as well for week number 17 of the NFL season. Heading into week 17, I had a record of 167 and 73. So I'm almost 100 games above 500. But as I said before, as long as I finish this season with an above 500 record, didn't matter if it was one game above or 20 or 30 games above 500. That's all my goal was for this year, was trying to get obviously more correct than incorrect. All right, that's going to take care of this video. As always, if you're new to this channel and you like this type of content, feel free to hit the sub button. I'd be very grateful and very appreciative. Until next time, and as always, take care.